February 24, 1986, marked a harrowing day for John Rutten as he dedicated every moment to reaching out to his 29-year-old wife, Sherri Rasmussen. Despite his numerous attempts to contact her via phone, Sherri remained unresponsive. Upon pulling into the garage of their Los Angeles residence, John's distress deepened as he came across fragments of shattered glass scattered on the ground. What heightened his concern further was the conspicuous absence of the BMW car he had gifted his wife just months earlier. A chilling discovery awaited John as he approached their apartment. The front door was left slightly ajar. A sense of foreboding gripped him, and moments later, his worst fears were realized. His beloved wife, Sherri, lay lifeless on the floor, her pulse non-existent. The detective tasked with delving into this case was none other than Lyle Meyer. As he began his investigation, a peculiar sight greeted him. A collection of electronic equipment neatly stacked in the living room, adjacent to Sherri Rasmussen's lifeless body. It was evident that the perpetrator had intended to abscond with these valuable items, yet for reasons unknown had left them behind. John Rutten, Sherri's husband, underwent questioning as part of the investigative process. In a startling turn of events, mere days into the investigation, the official pronouncement was that Sherri Rasmussen's tragic demise had resulted from a bungled burglary perpetrated by a random individual with no prior knowledge of the victim. However, over 2 decades later, the seemingly straightforward case took on a new and perplexing dimension, revealing that the assailant harbored a deeply personal vendetta against Sherri Rasmussen. It was during their time as students at the University of California, Los Angeles, that John Rutten and Stephanie Lazarus crossed paths. Rutten was immersed in his studies of mechanical engineering, while Lazarus pursued a degree in political science. Both were vibrant, popular individuals with promising futures ahead of them. Rutten and Lazarus embarked on a romantic relationship during their university years. Following their graduation, John pursued a career as a computer programmer, while Lazarus joined the ranks of the LAPD as an officer. It was during this time that Rutten crossed paths with Sherri Rasmussen, who held the position of recruiting director at Glendale Medical Center. At a 25th birthday celebration orchestrated by Lazarus for Rutten, he confided in her about his burgeoning relationship with Rasmussen, acknowledging the seriousness of their commitment. Filled with a sense of desperation, Lazarus composed a heartfelt letter to John's mother, expressing her deep affection for him and the emotional turmoil his confession had wrought. "I am truly in love with John, and his confession has deeply affected me. I would hate for our connection to end this way. I don't think I will ever comprehend his John Rutten's choice." Rasmussen and Rutten's romance blossomed, leading them to move into a shared rented apartment. After the events involving Rasmussen, Rutten conceded that he and Lazarus had met on several occasions before he married Sherri, with the intention of amicably ending their relationship. However, Lazarus grew increasingly attached to John and persisted in extending invitations to him. Her persistent contact with John raised concerns for Sherri, but Rutten assured her that his connection with Lazarus was purely platonic. On one occasion, Stephanie approached Rasmussen at her workplace, declaring, "If I can't have John, no one else will." Just 3 months following their wedding, tragedy struck as Sherri met a grim fate. During the subsequent LAPD forensic examination, an unsettling discovery emerged. A bite mark was identified on the young woman's arm. The unfolding investigation took an unexpected turn when a janitor at the couple's apartment complex came forward, revealing that he had stumbled upon a woman's purse, later confirmed to belong to Sherri Rasmussen. Adding to the perplexity of the case, a diligent maid who was tending to the floor above reported hearing what seemed like a heated altercation around 12:30 p.m., followed by the sound of something crashing. Astonishingly, despite hearing screams, neighbors opted against contacting the police. The prevailing theory pointed to a burglar in the act of pilfering electronic equipment, encountering Rasmussen in the process, sparking a violent confrontation. The firearm was concealed beneath a quilted blanket, seemingly to dampen the noise of gunshots. In a troubling twist, another apartment in the same vicinity fell victim to a break-in, with electronic gear disappearing. The unsettling detail that struck Detective Meyer's partner, Steve Hooks, was the unusual nature of the bite mark on Sherri's arm. Typically, such bites during altercations were more commonly associated with female perpetrators, while burglars were predominantly male. This incongruity added an eerie layer to the enigma at hand. The investigation into Sherri Rasmussen's murder took a perplexing turn when her missing car was discovered, abandoned some 20 kilometers from her home. Strangely, the only item stolen from the vehicle was the couple's marriage certificate. John Rutten, initially considered a suspect, was eventually ruled out and subsequently relocated away from Los Angeles following the tragic incident. He went on to remarry 5 years later. Rasmussen's father raised alarm with the police, reporting threats his daughter had received from none other than police officer Stephanie Lazarus. However, due to apparent conflicts of interest, Lazarus was questioned and subsequently released. As a result, the case hit a roadblock, with none of the suspects definitively identified. Sherri Rasmussen's father tirelessly endeavored to reopen the case for several years. In 2004, a breakthrough came when forensic scientist Jennifer Francis uncovered a crucial piece of evidence: a cotton swab containing DNA from a bite mark. This revelation led to a startling discovery. The saliva and bite mark were unequivocally linked to a woman, contradicting the initial theory of a male robber. In 2009, the LAPD rekindled its interest in the case, deeming the robbery and Sherri Rasmussen's murder a staged event meant to mislead the authorities. Detectives began to focus on Stephanie Lazarus as a prime suspect, intensifying their investigation. Disturbingly, it was determined that the shattered glass found by Rutten had resulted from a bullet fired from within the house, opposing the expected scenario of an external burglary. The spotlight, now firmly on Stephanie Lazarus, a fellow LAPD detective, revealed a series of suspicious details. She had visited John's house multiple times the night before the murder. Furthermore, Lazarus had reported her gun stolen within days of the crime, leading investigators to suspect she had disposed of the murder weapon herself. DNA analysis from a disposable coffee cup eventually matched the sample extracted from the bite mark on Rasmussen's arm. Upon Lazarus's arrest, a search of her home yielded a diary from the mid-1980s filled with references to her unrequited love for Rutten and her despair over his engagement to Rasmussen, curiously devoid of any mention of her missing firearm. Computer records revealed numerous late 1990s internet searches of John Rutten's name. Following her arrest, Lazarus retired early from the LAPD. Her bail hearing was significantly delayed, and when it finally occurred, the judge set bail at an astounding $10 million in cash, citing concerns that she might flee the country using firearms obtained through her husband. The trial commenced in early 2012 in the Los Angeles County Superior Court, with prosecutors contending that Stephanie Lazarus' motive was rooted in jealousy over Sherri Rasmussen's relationship with John Rutten. Lazarus was ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 27 years in prison. She is currently serving her sentence at the California Institution for Women, with parole eligibility slated for December 2034. Despite multiple attempts to appeal her case, appellate courts have upheld her sentence.